Hello and welcome, I'm Gord Graff. For some woodworkers, building cabinet doors can and oftentimes is a daunting task, but it need not be. This simple cabinet door that I have in my shop was built out of maple and maple plywood. It has a 3/8 inch beaded edge and mitered corners. Typically, this door is referred to as a frame and panel door or a 5-piece door because it consists of 5 separate pieces. You have one being the panel, and you have stiles on either side and a bottom rail and a top rail. They're mitered at the corner and reinforced with a biscuit, and if you're concerned about gluing up that miter, don't be. I'll show you a nifty little trick for taking care of that. The first thing for me to do, after I've cut my stiles and rails to width, and they happen to be 2.5 inches wide, is to set a beading bit in the router table, and it's a 3/8 inch beading bit, and move my guard out of the way on my table saw, get my featherboard in place, Now the next thing for me to do is to cut a groove into the stiles and rails to accept the panel. Now at one time, 1/4 inch panels were 1/4 inch. This one happens to be 5.3 millimeters. Now, if I was going to put this groove dead center in the stiles and rails, I would run it through the saw, switch it around, and run it through again, and then have a centered groove, gradually working my way out to the width of this panel. This isn't the case. I don't want the groove in the center. I want it slightly off center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the piece of material through with the blade set at a 1/2 inch height, and I'll move the fence over, make another cut, move the fence over until I get the exact width of this panel. Now what I've also done is, because this is not a through cut, it's not coming through the material, I'm going to place a featherboard on the outfeed side of the blade and on the infeed side of the blade. And again, because my guard is going to get in the way, I'm going to put in an auxiliary Lexan or polycarbonate guard. With the fence moved over, it's time to make the final pass. Perfect. Up until this point, it's been pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Now comes the sticky part. Those miters are 45 degrees and they have to be right on the money. So whatever it takes to make sure that your miter gauge and your saw blade are exactly 45 degrees, take the time to do it, because now's the time that it'll really pay off in the end. So I'll go ahead and cut these to length and on the miters, and we'll put it together. Once my miters fit perfectly, the next thing for me to do was to cut a panel to fit inside this frame. Now, when I originally cut the grooves in the stiles and the rails, I set the saw for 1/2 inch deep. So I know that there's a slot in here 1/2 inch. So all I have to do is I have to measure from here to here, from the inside of this stile to the inside of that stile, and whatever that measurement is, I'll go ahead and add 1 inch. Well, almost. I add 1 inch, but I'll also subtract about 1/16 of an inch just to make it easier to assemble. And I'll do that for the width and for the height. The last machining step that I have to do is I have to cut a number 20 biscuit slot in each stile and rail on the miter. So I've divided the stiles and rails in half, and I've made a mark on all of them, and now I'll cut those. Gluing up miter joints is difficult. When you apply glue to the miter and apply clamp pressure, what happens is either leg of the miter wants to slide past the other. Well, for years I've used these, and all these are is just a clamping block. They're made out of, this one happens to be made out of 3/4 inch Baltic birch with a couple of pieces of 1/4 inch plywood on it just to sit on top of the door so it doesn't fall off, and a 1/2 inch hole for glue squeeze out. Let me show you how they work. With the biscuits in the frame and the panel installed, I'm going to put on my corner clamping brackets and start the clamping process. Now what I want to do is I just want to bring the joint close together. It doesn't have to be perfect right at the beginning. So just so that we're getting there and the clamps are tightening up. All right, you can see this is way off and this is way off. This one's not bad and this one's off. So that's fine. I'll place another clamp across the joint. Same thing on this side. Now here's where this process starts to take place. As I apply tension on the clamps, the joint wants to slide by each other. So what I'll do is I'll slowly increase clamp pressure and decrease as needed, like here. Now, if you come down and take a look at this particular joint, I'll show you exactly what I mean by manipulating these clamps. Well, here's where I want you to concentrate, right on this corner in here and this bead. And you'll see when I apply clamp pressure from either this clamp or the end clamp, you'll see exactly what happens. Let me just move this out of the way. Okay. So I start to snug up, and if I tighten up this one too much, this will start to sneak past. So I'll back this off. In fact, it's a little too much. I'll back it off, tighten up this one, and there it is. The miter's tight, the bead looks good, and this inside corner right here is perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. With the dry fit complete, and I know I won't have any problems during glue up, it's time to apply the glue. Quick little test. square. That's right on. That's right on. And that's right on. Perfect. With a little more sanding, this door will be ready for the finish room. And all thanks to this little jig that helped me clamp the mitered corners. I'm Gord Graff. Thanks for watching.